I want you to imagine a country where the children are free to walk in the streets, where the economy is settled and normal. I want you to imagine a country which does not wage war against innocent people overseas. I want you to imagine a country that has a government which is dedicated to preserving the people, its own people. I want you to imagine a country which is dedicated to ensuring that the culture, traditions and people of its own nation remain intact for the future generations. I want you to imagine a British National Party government, because that is the only government which is going to guarantee that this nation continues to exist in the form that it has today. We noted just the other week, the shock horror report came out, which we all knew, that white British children are now a minority in Birmingham and Leicester. They say 47%. But we've known that to be the case for a number of years already. We know that white British children are a minority in London schools as well. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are facing is nothing less than a physical extermination, the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous British people from these islands.
I think they're short term. I understand where they're coming from and so on, but most of all they're created with the fact that newspapers like The Star, and this goes back to a question we had right at the beginning in terms of whether there's a proper nationalism and there's a bogus phony nationalism being created. Newspapers like The Star and the BBC are the most anti-British, anti-English organisation there is in this country, virtually bar none. I think the Socialist Workers' Party pips them to the post.
We know this, and we are the only party who is dedicated to not only halting this process, but reversing it as well. And we're not ashamed to say that. That is our dedication, that is our promise to this nation. That by the time we are the government, by the time we have been in power, this nation will be a white British indigenous nation forever and ever and ever and ever. Amen.
And the White House, inshallah.
That's about it. And there they are, plugging the English Defence League. I don't know if you saw the one where their leader was on with Paxman. And poor old Jeremy was squirming having to let him just walk all over him. And the programme about them was a 25-minute party political broadcast for the English Defence League, not for the average sort of nice middle-class elderly person who watches Newsnight, but for any of the ordinary lads, ordinary fellas, youngsters watching it. I thought, yeah, that's the stuff.
I want you to draw the parallel. Draw the parallel. Imagine if 500,000 of us went to Saudi Arabia and they just occupied Mecca.
Transform Buckingham Palace into a local mosque for the Muslims.
And what happens to the Queen?
Well, the Queen, she has a choice. She can either become Muslim or she can leave the country.
This man, Amjad Chowdhury, is their leader. He demands Islamic law, known as Sharia,
what the hell are they doing?
the law of the land.
It's a phony artificial thing being created as a safety valve because they know, and I tell you, that millions of our people, literally millions of them, even though they haven't yet voted for us, millions of our people who perhaps even yet wouldn't vote for us still admire this party of ours. And they talk about it and they think about it, and we are an icon of something really unusual and different, and we're the ones who told the truth.
There are now 500,000 of us here. You don't mind if we start our own schools, do you? And we're going to build, and when in our schools, although we're in an Arab country, we're not going to teach our children Arabic, we're going to teach them English. You don't mind that. We're bringing the gift of multiculturalism and diversity. And by the way, you've got to pay for it as well.
Perfectly well, but sooner or later some of these crackpot young Muslims are going to get through with some more bombs, and the switch is going to flick in our people's heads. It really is. And when that happens, They don't want it to be a sensible political road which will threaten the ruling class and shift them out of the way and get them away from the trough and do things right instead. They're quite happy to have an outburst of violence when various good-hearted morons think the thing to do is go and smash the windows of some unfortunate Bengali takeaway, and they think they've done their bit, and it must be something stupid and short-term and ugly which will allow the liberal elite to come in and say, right, we need an iron hand here, we need extra police powers, we need to keep
Now,
you
would
off
you
the
like
streets
me
and all the rest.
to be the cat?
And then, next thing we tell them, we say, well, you know, we're now a majority in these areas we've occupied, and these funny-shaped buildings you've got with the little things on the top, you know what, they're mosques, aren't they? Well, you know, we're not really a Muslim, we're Christian, we've got some other religions, we're going to knock them down and build churches here. You don't mind that, it's diversity, don't you? Yes, you like diversity. You're not a racist, are you?
A bit of unpleasantness, and everything goes back to normal under their control. I think that's what they want, and the EDL is being created and pushed for that. That's not actually to criticise a lot of the lads who are there. At least they're trying to do something. It's crude and it's a bit rough, but it's always been like that. Kipling talks about that. It's Tommy this and Tommy that, and chuck him out the brutes. It's savour his country when the guns begin to shoot. So these lads, they're the scum of the earth, and when it's football, the police beat the crap out of them and push them around and treat them like scum. But oh, come a war, yeah, come along, sign up youngsters, and all the rest of it. So it's those kids. So we shouldn't condemn them for being a bit rough and ready and inarticulate, because they've been put through a school system which is designed to make working class kids rough and ready and inarticulate, so they can't challenge the status quo. So the fact they're prepared to get up and do and stand there is good, and I think the long term, although it's designed to block us and keep things basically as they are, and perhaps also to drive a wedge between us and the Muslims, because they're the one group which the powers that be actually aren't too keen on, because they suddenly realise they might replace them. So although it's being used for that, basically created for bad purposes, I think it'll have a good effect in the end.
And we knocked them down and we built some churches. And then we say to them, well, you know, you're a Muslim country, and we know you don't like alcohol, but you're really, quite frankly, it's our tradition to get out of the pub on a Friday night. So you don't mind if we start a few breweries and build a few pubs? You don't mind? We're not forcing you to do it. It's diversity. It's the wonders of multiculturalism. You surely are not racist. You don't mind?
Because it's politicised in a very simplistic sort of way a whole new generation of youngsters who wouldn't have been politicised at all if it hadn't been for that. And my guess is there's probably 100, 200,000 young people who've been turned on to this now. And for instance, you know, the UAF, the ones who come and have a go at us, you know, and especially if you've got a group of our people a bit getting on in years with a petition stalled against the Afghan war, well, they're very rough then to come in, aren't they? Very brave, the UAF then. They're not quite so brave. They weren't so brave in Barnsley last week, when a big mob of them were confronted by roughly an equal size of lads from the EDL, and they have rapidly left town. So, I guess, you know, we wouldn't want to do it. We've got serious politics to do. If this has been created, it's having that effect. And most important of all, it's helping to politicise young people in this country. That's good, because it's not a long-term thing. It's not going to be a viable political party. All those youngsters politicised, there's only one home for their political allegiance, and that's us in the British National Party. So as is very often the case, these people out there, too clever by half, for the long term, doing our work.
You know you're a Muslim country, you don't like pigs very much, but you know what? We really like your bacon butty. So you know what we're going to do? You know what we're going to do? We are going to start some pig farms, and we're going to have our gammon steaks and our bacon buddies. You don't mind that. It's our tradition and you don't want to be racist, do you? Oh, and by the way, our reproduction rate amongst our own people is 6 times higher than yours. You don't mind that, do you? Because if you say anything against that, you're just a racist. So you don't mind that in 30 years' time we're going to be the majority population? You don't mind that, do you?
Enter into a struggle, if you like, of words, and maybe even more than that, before we can see the fruition of the Sharia really on state level.
It's destiny. It's about this country. Wait a minute, Karen. It's about this country somehow or other surviving all the terrible things that are being done to it by our masters, by our ruling elite. And it's not just about us. We're only the instruments whereby our country, our nation, the people who were born generations ago and have died in this country are part of the soil of this country. The generations yet to be born. A nation has a life which is far more than just the individuals now. And this country, not just the people, this country is waking up and coming back to life and saying, no, we're not going to fade away. We're not going to become someone else's country. And this is just one of the powers.
The reality is that you couldn't do one of those things in any Arab country, in any Muslim country, not even one of them, and you'd have been thrown out without further ado. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the reality. Every single one of those things has been done here in Britain, and it is taking place right now as you sit here tonight. The reality is, without the British National Party, this country is doomed.
And even to the Bible Belt, I think they call it the Midwest. And, it's about propagating Islam. I do believe that the Muslims in America are possibly 5 or 10 years behind in terms of the struggle that they engage.
Providing we sacrifice, providing we work, providing we struggle and toil, we're going to win. Thank you very much.
You will determine whether this nation lives or dies, and that is why we are dedicated, open and proud to declare ourselves that we will stand for this nation. There is no retreat, there is no surrender, there is either death or victory, and we choose victory. Yeah!